You're welcome back. And I titled Something Stake, a software J, and Nestor Yeboah, Free Speech and Bail Abuse. Today, I return to education I have given in a number of times. Ghana may have in 2001 abolished its law that criminalized speech. But why do some behave as though free speech, as guaranteed in the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, implies license to be utterly reckless in what they say? A breed of vile, lacking in morals, partisans, mercenary media practitioners, and charlatans in cassock continue to encourage an ugly subculture of insults where issues are up for debate. They give some young people searching for guidance the impression it is okay to disrespect even accomplished elders and baselessly attack personalities rather than issues. The sad thing is, otherwise decent groups and high-up individuals have also guarded and rewarded such social fabric-destroying conduct for parochial, often partisan benefit. Attorney General Nana Akufo-Addo led Parliament to get rid of the law that punished people for insulting, ridiculing, and defaming the president. You paid up to 9,000 cedis and or faced up to 3 years in jail. But in 2008, we put in our laws that you should pay up to 2,400 and or spend up to 3 years in jail if you used disrespectful or insulting language on a chief or did so by conduct. You could also go to jail for up to 3 or 10 years for threatening harm or death with the intention to put the person in fear of harm or death. So, as it is, there is freedom before speech, but that freedom is not guaranteed after you have spoken. There is that other law we have been fighting for its repeal. You are at risk of spending up to 3 years in jail if you spread false and misleading information to cause fear and alarm. 56-year-old Apostle Kwabena Ejay joins the list of nation-wrecking talkers. But why did the security operatives abuse his rights as a suspect and continue to do so, denying him access to a lawyer? The rights-violating video of his arrest clearly shows his Miranda rights were not read to him. He wasn't allowed to examine the purported warrant for his arrest and was being questioned without a lawyer of his choice to guide him as the Constitution requires. Some, myself included, may have asked questions about the alleged marijuana said to have been found on him. But how is that a justification for putting his alleged medical report in the public? How does a security organization expect any respect and cooperation from citizens when it so flagrantly abuses such sacred private confidentiality rights to keep evidence only meant for the courtroom? The evil practice of planting incriminating evidence on suspects is as old as policing itself, and only lawful and transparent policing kills the image-damaging suspicion. You should concentrate on avoiding the embarrassment you would have faced, however brief, if he had a lawyer who was minded to point out the fact that you relied on a repealed PNDC law for the possession of narcotics charge. That PNDC law has been repealed with or replaced with the Narcotics Control Commission Act 2020 Act 1019. How did the court deal with the question of bail for him? Or it didn't think about it at all, even in this COVID-19 era? Well, a court this week used bail as punishment against the plain dictate of the law. And Nestor Yeboah, notorious for his civil rights activism, slept in police cells because of unconscionably excessive and harsh bail conditions set in the sum of 100,000 with 3 sureties, 2 of whom were to be public servants. He was not charged with a serious offense or felony. His charge is not even properly described as a misdemeanor offense. His offense in organizing the hashtag Black Lives Matter vigil, allegedly without due notice to police, is only punishable by a maximum fine of 3,000 Ghana cedis and or a year in jail. This was a man who was already on police inquiry bail with only 1 surety. Many judges have the practice of keeping to the terms of the police inquiry bail or even reducing it. Interestingly, we are celebrating the fact that Ghana has been commended for standing with George Floyd's family and Black Americans. In America, it has been several days of spontaneous demonstrations that don't require notifying the police. That's my take. Let me welcome my guest for us to begin this morning's session of News File. And as we have announced to you already, we are dealing first with the question of infrastructure. The president has boldly declared, although it's been said many times, he has now even affirmed it a lot more, that the infrastructure, the massive infrastructure that you have heard spoken about over the period, as done by the NDC, only remains on the Green Book or in the Green Book. My guests this morning are Pius Enam Hajide, Deputy Minister of Information, Felix Kwache Ofosu, former Deputy Communications Minister and NDC parliamentary candidate for Ebura Asebu Kwamankese. We'll have the second segment where Inusa Fuseni, MP, Tamale Central and Ranking Member, Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs, Yabwa Benga Samoa, MP Adentang and Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party, as well as Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Director, Advocacy and Policy Engagement of the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, will join us. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to News File.
Good morning, Samson.
Okay, so my mask has not helped me too much. I just removed it. I'll find time and fix it properly. So let's listen to President Akufo-Addo on the question of, road infrastructure and how the NDC did. We'll hear also the Minister, Kwesi Amoakwata, Minister of Roads and Highways, then former President John Mahama on the questions and attacks on what he did as being only in the Green Book. And then we have his special aide who also says something about it. Let's listen to them.
We made a pledge to the Ghanaian people to expand and improve the road network while closing the missing links in the network. We had to make this pledge because we know that the so-called unprecedented infrastructure development of the Mahama administration was fantasy, existing in the Green Book and not on the ground.
I believe that we must be serious, and we should stop this little politicking and I did this, I did that. The most important thing is that within the last 28 months, 2 years, 4 months, this project has been delivered for the people of this country and for our benefit. We are praying that we do the second phase to complete the project, and this project is for the government and the good people of this country. This is what we should
So should it be remembered as an Akufo-Addo project or a Mahama project?
That is not important. That is not important. No, the most important thing is that this project has been delivered within the last 28 months. You know, under President Akufo-Addo, this project has been delivered.
Our process proceeds smoothly. But, and a big but, let nobody assume that we will accept the results of a flawed election.
In view of the abundance of evidence over the accuracy of the contents of the Green Book, there are only two possible explanations for the consistent falsehood of the President on the matter. It is possible that despite having heard about it, President Akufo-Addo has never cited a copy of the book. It is also entirely possible that he is fully apprised of the contents of the Green Book, but has chosen the path of falsehood insofar as it enables him to mislead fanatical supporters of the NPP or unsuspecting members of the Ghanaian public, and in the process hide his dubious reputation as the least performing of all Ghanaian leaders, at least in the area of infrastructure and capital investments. For the avoidance of doubts, there is not a single project in the Green Book which does not exist on the ground today, or for which clear context has not been provided regarding its status. The danger that the Green Book poses to President Akufo-Addo is a grave one, as it provides the most compelling and visceral proof of his mediocre performance compared to his predecessor. Lip service has continued to be paid to President Akufo-Addo's promise to build a rail line between Ghana and Burkina Faso. And with 6 months to the expiration of his tenure, no tangible work has been done.
You're welcome back. And forgive us for the mishap there. We wanted to play President Mahama himself earlier, but we played a wrong sound. We will use that sound later when we come to discuss the voters register controversy. Right. So once again, welcome. And I don't know if I should start with Pius. How can what the president said be true? You heard him. He was so categorical and emphatic that President Mahama's road infrastructure, claims exist only in this Green Book. And it's not on the brown earth.
Well, thank you very much, Samson. Good morning to you, to my colleague Felix, and to the cherished viewers on TV and listeners on radio. I think that this discussion on infrastructure is important because infrastructure, we admit, plays a major role in our socio-economic development, no doubt. But I think that the view that some people carry, and majority of them from the NDC, that governance is all about brick and mortar, is rather limited. Governance goes beyond infrastructure, and I've said that infrastructure is important, but equally important are the huge investments into, for instance, the human capital, social investments, and those must also not be lost on us, and that we must get rid of the thinking that governance is all about engaging with a contractor to put one infrastructure here or there, and benefits may accrue to us later. We can talk about those going forward. And for us, management of the economy as well is critical. In fact, I believe that it is about managing the economy that enables you to even deliver on the infrastructure. And if the growth rate under the NDC declined from the average of over 7% to around 3%, what it meant was that our capacity to even deliver on the infrastructure was declining. And if under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the economy peaked and was going back to an average of about 7%, what it meant was that our capacity to deliver on the infrastructure was also peaking and going up. the other issue about infrastructure, Green Book, I think that is a question that the people of Ghana have answered quite clearly by the verdict of the 2016 elections. Because infrastructure was the mainstay of our colleagues in the NDC pre the 2016 general elections. And when they made the point that roads had been constructed, I recall that on one of the campaign tours, His Excellency made the point that the roads in the country were bad. His Excellency John Mahama at the time retorted that he may have fallen asleep because the roads were too good. 2-3 years down the lane, those roads that we were promised or we were assured had been completed, everywhere you went in this country, people were asking for roads. So it is only fair to suggest that if you indeed promised us and assured us that the roads were fixed and that you had put those roads in the Green Book, and now the people are complaining about the roads, then one, you may have misled the people, or an insistence that the road actually does exist, even in the light of the evidence that the people are asking for roads everywhere you go right now.
A good introduction. You said it is only fair to suggest. Did the president suggest? Please, let's hear the president again, and let's hear President Mahama if his sound is ready.
We made a pledge to the Ghanaian people to expand and improve the road network while closing the missing links in the network. We had to make this pledge because we know that the so-called unprecedented infrastructure development of the Mahama administration was fantasy, existing in the Green Book and not on the ground.
Documents are well documented in the Green Book, and I urge all doubters to get a copy and step into their communities and cross-check if the projects outlined there, the e-blocks, the interchanges, the hospitals, and other transformational projects exist only in that book.
So you heard the president. Was he suggesting, you said it might be fair to suggest that you were only misleading the people and that the things don't exist. Was he suggesting?
Yes, clearly, and we must put the president's conversation into context. I mean, we clearly must understand where he was coming from.
No, was he making a suggestion?
Well, my understanding is that it was a fair suggestion to make, and indeed, he was making a suggestion that it was misleading what was put in the Green Book. The people were hoodwinked, and in fact, misrepresentation was done on the part of the previous administration.
Do me this favor. Listen to the president one more time.
We made a pledge to the Ghanaian people to expand and improve the road network while closing the missing links in the network. We had to make this pledge because we know that the so-called unprecedented infrastructure development of the Mahama administration was fantasy, existing in the Green Book and not on the ground.
We know, he said knowledge,
yes,
that the so-called Mahama infrastructure,
unprecedented, that's
yes, was fantasy.
Absolutely, I hold the view.
And does not exist on the earth.
Yes.
You said he was suggesting that it may be misleading.
Well, I am having a discussion, but
no,
for me,
the discussion is premise of the president's
what the president said was a factual representation of
that
what
they
was
don't
on the
exist.
The unprecedented developments that we were told that the roads had been constructed and that they were so smooth that riding on them you could fall asleep. Those fantasy, those unprecedented so-called achievements did not exist on the ground.
Right. He did not limit himself to roads. He said infrastructure, unprecedented.
But Samson, I think that in fairness,
this is what I want us to do.
Sure.
As you can see, I raked up my Green Book, and I can see the various developments in there. If I may give you a choice, take this Green Book, point us to one which does not exist, so that we will know that you are speaking to fact and that the president says it is out of knowledge that these things don't exist. So all the many hundreds of infrastructure here, can you point to one that doesn't exist?
No, Samson, I think that I can understand what exercise you want us to engage in. But I think that, like I said, we must put the president's comment in context. And let's not be too simplistic about it. Because you see, for instance, where the president was speaking, was it or was it not in the Green Book? The Temamuto way, was it or was it not in the Green Book? Today, the airport, the Terminal 3, was it or was it not in the Green Book?
Are you able to show? Are you able to show the project that the president? It will take all
the time. I've done some cursory work on the Green Book.
I've seen that you brought a lot of books too,
which I can share with you. But
I brought just this.
No, I'm discussing the whole. Yes, I brought some document to also discuss.
So
the
what
whole
I only need you to do is to let me know, for example, the things that have been stated here. I just open at random. Sakomano Sea Defense Project, and they show us the pictures. If you're able to say it does not exist, the president said they don't exist. In Sawam Water Expansion Project, they show us the beautiful buildings of the particular project in this Green Book. So we see them there.
You see, in that we talk about in Sawam Water. So hold on with the water, Samson, 1 second. If you go to page 60. Of the Green Book. These projects were listed as Mahama projects. The Kmon Water Works.
Yes.
The Kwewu Ridge Water Projects. Kumewu Water Projects. Konongo Water Projects. Wa Water Projects.
Right.
Interconnection of Sechehiman Water Treatment Plant. And they were stated as John Mahama projects.
Okay. So you mentioned the Kmon Intake Rehabilitation Project. Now, what did the Green Book say about it? The Kmon Intake Rehabilitation Project has been carried out to improve efficiency by replacing all existing pumps. As part of the project, a water treatment plant has been built to increase supply to communities such as Dodowa, Ningo, and Prampram, all in the Greater Accra region and the Ekwaping Ridge in the Eastern region. This plant can supply 3.3 million gallons per day.
Yes, so I'm saying to you that the impression that the Green Book sought to create was to claim credit and to posit that these were John Mahama projects. In fact, if you listen to former President John Mahama, he said that his achievements were captured in the Green Book. But if you read the 2007 budget, you will notice that these projects are listed in the 2007 budget. And so they could not have been projects of the NDC. So that is misleading.
So in this particular context of that project, you are saying it exists, but they can't claim absolute credit for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And there are
That's a different case. It exists. It's just that they can't claim all the credit. Like they are also saying today that some of the things you are claiming credit for, you should be magnanimous and not take all the credit. Okay.
You go to the one that speaks
Cape Coast Stadium.
The one that speaks
Cape Coast Stadium. They name it here. Nearing completion.
Even that one, they created the impression that this was also a John Mahama project. In fact, it was not.
This is what they said. The last few years has seen Ghana begin to reap benefits of the developmental investments made in the youth in the various sporting disciplines. Over the last 2 years, the progressive prominence of Ghanaian sportsmen, among others, so they state it here, and then what do they come to say about the project? They give us a picture of the project. You see the Vice President, Mr. Arthur, inspecting the progress of work. I think they don't say anything beyond that, apart from the pictures, and they say it is nearing completion. So what's your point?
Well, my point is that the whole idea, my understanding of His Excellency's presentation was that, and that's why I started the whole conversation, that infrastructure development is not about one or two trophy projects in the capital or in some few regional capitals. Infrastructure has to permeate the whole spectrum from the very base. Okay. And that's why I brought some documents to show to you that if you are talking about truly unprecedented, it really does not exist. It only may exist in the Green Book. Because what we have seen on the ground, going around, driving on the roads, even here in Accra, the infrastructure deficit is so huge.
Okay.
But here we are, we were promised.
This is in the Green Book. It exists, correct? We looked at the Kmon. It exists, doesn't it?
Yes, it exists, but creates a misleading picture.
This is housing. And you can see here, Saglime Affordable Housing Project and they show us all of it.
Yes.
I suppose you drive to your hometown.
I do.
And you do see these buildings there?
I do.
Okay. Even though they may be under controversy, they exist, don't they?
These ones exist, yes.
Okay.
But Samson, I think that, again, my view was not that simplistic, that what the president meant was that within the 4 years or the 8 years that cumulatively Mr. Mahama has been in charge of running the affairs of this country, collecting the people's tax, borrowing money on our behalf, he was not going to see, we were not going to see even one project to his name. That was not my understanding. There may be a few isolated projects that stand in the name of the NDC and even in the name of Mr. Mahama.
So you are now qualifying what the president said.
But the president himself qualified it, that the unprecedented infrastructure development that we were assured was not anywhere on the ground. And something I can put it to you. Do you see any unprecedented infrastructure that is on the ground? Do you not hear the complaints about roads?
Help me and my audience understand, because over the week that has been the debate. You are clarifying that what the president meant is that there are projects. The projects in the Green Book exist, but they are not unprecedented.
Well, partly so. Partly also that the Green Book paints a misleading picture. In fact, some of us even held the view long ago that this was fraud. Some of the Green Book pictures, they were artistic impressions. At the time of compilation,
you are here. This is the Green Book. I have handed it to you, and I have asked you to point to just one. You haven't done that.
Phyllis will deal with the artistic impressions in the Green Book, because I've heard him speak about artistic impressions in the Green Book. Today, those artistic impressions, 4 years after the tenure of former His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, today you may see some of these structures, because we believe that projects that are good must be continued and completed. So today some of these projects may be seen standing. But at the time of compilation, some of the pictures even in this book were also, in addition, just artistic impressions. And I just had a call from somebody from Ada yesterday that on page 60 of the Green Book, they promised that they had done the Ada coastline protection. The person sent me a picture that the Ada coastline defense does not exist. This somebody from Ada, page 60 of the Green Book, I'm told, that they said that there was some Ada coastal protection that they did. But I got a call from Ada yesterday that does not exist. And so if somebody says that some of the projects in the book does not exist, some were artistic impressions, and some are projects that you cannot claim credit for, but you are claiming credit for it in the Green Book, it becomes, even if you may, fraud that was perpetrated on the people.
I see.
And so I think that was the context within which His Excellency was speaking.
In page 60, where I see Ada is, it's Akim Ada, it's not Ada.
No, it's the Adam Beach. I can get it for you.
Page 60, yeah, I'm at page 60. I'm at page 60. In fact, glancing through in this very short time in page 60, I doubt I can see Ada in page 60.
I'll get it.
What he's talking about is a sea defense. That would
sea
be
defense. Okay, so page 60 doesn't have Ada, and page 61 too doesn't either.
No, I'll get the page for you. Okay. I got a call about it. I mean, I've gotten the page number, but I'll get it for you even before we go on.
And the evidence the person
yes, he sent me the two pictures. Okay. But I'm saying to you that we must place the president's comment in context. So something we cannot see that the taxes that were collected, the amounts that were borrowed, huge ones, the grants that were taken on behalf of the people, that you could not see one or two projects that do not stand in the name of the former administration. No, every government from the days of have done some infrastructure. And in fact, we are doing massive infrastructure, and I'll get to those in a bit. I'm saying that the president could not have been saying that there is not one project that we can give Mr. Mahama credit for. That cannot be the case. Okay. But the context within which we were speaking was that the Green Book was chiefly designed to mislead us and hoodwink us into thinking a certain...
You see, whilst you are unable to point me to a single of these things, apart from this uncorroborated one you are showing, and which also doesn't exist at page 60, at least we can't find that now, you still insist and use words like fraud. Hold on. But you still insist and use words like fraud, and that this is fraud. Please, I want to hear Felix, but all of us, once again, listen to President Akufo-Addo.
We made a pledge to the Ghanaian people to expand and improve the road network while closing the missing links in the network. We had to make this pledge because we know that the so-called unprecedented infrastructure development of the Mahama administration was fantasy, existing in the Green Book and not on the ground.
So after listening to him, I'm obviously not simplifying, being simplistic about anything. Whilst we are being shown that the Adan thing the person is referring to is in page 67 or 66, I'll check that. But Felix, let's hear you.
You see something? This debate is so straightforward that perhaps you should not even be having it because the answer is so obvious. The questions you pose to Pius immediately expose the falsehood of the president's claim. To begin with, I agree entirely with Pius that governance is not all about infrastructure. And in fact, Samson, if you check the Green Book, it is not all about infrastructure.
That's right.
We speak about the economy. In fact, this is the third Green Book that the NDC has published. The first two deal substantially with progress made in the area of the economy. So I wish to put it on record, and I was part of those who compiled this book, that it does not solely focus on infrastructure. Two, Pius says that the thing that enables you even carry out infrastructure investments is the management of the economy. Let me also place it on record that when it comes to the management of the economy, the NDC has a vastly superior record to what the NPP has. In fact, the best record in terms of macroeconomic indicators, there are about 18 different indicators that are used. The best record happened under the NDC when President Mills was president and President Mahama was then vice president and head of the economic management team. The highest growth rates were recorded under President Mills. Indeed, the average for the period between 2009 and 2012 was about 9% growth rates. There was a year, 2011, where we grew by 14.4%. The NPP has never been able to match that. Indeed, this year, they will record the worst ever economic growth in the history of Ghana, 1.5%. No, in the last 40 years, 1.5%.
Which will not be strange because that's the global situation because of the pandemic.
But it will go on record that that was a growth rate. It is far lower than the 14.4% that we achieved. I just said that to make the point that they go about claiming that they have the best economic record. That is not true. Again, the way that you see if a government's economic performance is reflecting in infrastructure investments is what we call the capital expenditure to GDP ratio, capex to GDP ratio. Indeed, one of the foremost proponents of that is Dr. Baumia.
Okay.
Whilst in opposition, he never ceased to tell people about the use of that benchmark to assess a government's performance in infrastructure investments. So if you look at the budget statements between 2013 and 2019, it is quite clear. Thank you very much for helping me sanitize. It is quite clear, and I must apologize to viewers for my struggle with the mask. It's not easy wearing this and speaking. It is quite clear which government has a superior record translating this economic performance to infrastructure development. And indeed, when you look at the capex to GDP ratio, the bigger it is, the more money has been spent. So in 2013, under President Mahama, the capex to GDP ratio was 3.9%. This simply pitches your capital investment, the money that goes into infrastructure, against the size of your GDP. So the bigger it is, the more money you spent. 2013, it was 3.9%. 2014, 3.9%. 2015, it jumped to 4%. 2016, 4.6%. President Akufo-Addo took over in 2017. In 2017, it was 3.1%, far lower than what President Mahama left. In 2018, it slumped to 1.6%. 2019, 1.5%. There's every indication that given the terrible growth rate we are going to experience this year, it will be less than 1%. Now, having said this, let me jump into what the president said. You see, Pius should not attempt sophistry. The clip you played is clear and unambiguous. The president said that the unprecedented infrastructure exists only in the Green Book and not on the ground. Again, if it were the case that this was the first time the president was saying this, you could perhaps dismiss it as something he said in jest. And therefore, Pius's discussion about contextualization will come in. It is not the first time. Indeed, for 4 years, President Akufo-Addo has been waging a war of attrition on the Green Book. The first time he said it was on an MPP platform in 2016, August. He was very specific that the Green Book was filled with artist impressions. The second time he said it was when he took over, at the launch of the MPP manifesto. He said it was filled with artist impressions. The third time he said it, he had become president. He met a group of chiefs from the Upper West region sometime in 2018. And I'm going to quote him. Before I came here, and this is a quote, I was told by my biggest competitor that they have done all roads in Ghana and that they are responsible for an unprecedented infrastructure development. Everywhere I go, I do not think there's any institution that has talked to me and has not raised the issue about roads in the area of principal concern. Again, he took this a notch higher. In the State of the Nation address on 20th February 2020, and I'm quoting him, artist impressions have been passed off as constructed roads. And then there was this incident last week Friday. So it is a consistent pattern of attacks
with the exception of this week. The president has been simply echoing concerns of the people he meets.
No, you see something?
No. I am also here.
Yeah.
We have seen and heard that the president has been to places and the people have complained bitterly about their road infrastructure.
And I doubt if President Akufo-Addo will be the last president to whom people complain about roads. Until we do every road in Ghana, that complaint will persist. It is a legitimate concern. And the way that you respond to it is actually to fix the roads, not to peddle falsehood about the record of a predecessor. But I will address that presently. So if you put all the things that the president has said together that I've read to you, it boils down to three things. That one, the contents of the Green Book are not real, they are not on the ground. Two, that the book is filled with artist impressions. And then three, President Mahama had said that he had done all roads. And so when President Akufo-Addo goes on, he should not face complaints about rules that do not exist. So if you permit me, I'm going to take all of this within the constraints of time. First of all, I was part of the group that drafted this book. And I'm telling you, as a matter of fact, without any ambiguity, that there is not a single project in this book that does not exist on the ground today, or at the time we were doing it, or for which context was not provided in terms of its status.
Now you talk about context too.
Because you have not read the book. I doubt if President Akufo-Addo has ever read the book. The book is clear. In every introduction to every sector, we make it clear that these projects represent projects that are ongoing, completed, or in some cases for which contracts have been awarded for. Because projects don't just materialize, they go through a process. So I am saying, for the records, that there's not a single project stated in this book that does not exist on the ground.
Can we take the Adazi defense project, for example?
Again, you see,
where in the book you talk about moving on to a second phase.
Yes, but you see,
he says that somebody has reached out to him to suggest that.
The person who sent him that picture also tagged me in a similar picture on Facebook. The problem with the MPP is that their propaganda is so pedestrian. He believes that when he hides in Adan and takes a picture of the sea is a vast area. So when you take a portion where there are no stones and you present it and say that we have not done the sea defense in Adan, then you are telling the truth. I am telling you, as a matter of fact, that project exists. There is third-party corroboration of this. Because indeed, the Daily Graphic in 2014 paid a visit to the place. I'm going to read you the Daily Graphic's own testimony.
Okay.
Last Saturday, when the Daily Graphic visited the project site to see the progress of work, officials disclosed that the first phase had already been completed, while the second phase was also progressing steadily. And they are quoting Mr. Adrian Royce, the project engineer, who was there that day when they went. Work started in early 2013, and this is a 36-month project, which we hope to complete within the specific period. The picture you showed there.
So is this a picture from Adan?
Absolutely.
This picture was taken from Adan?
This picture was taken from Adan. At the time that this was done, they have finished the first phase, we are moving on to the second phase. And I've given you the third-party corroboration by the most credible newspaper in Ghana, the Daily Graphic, who visited the place and spoke to those undertaking the project.
No.
Please. When you were speaking, I kept quiet. Somebody has merely taken the picture and sent to you. You've not even verified. You've not been to Adan to see it.
So we see the picture here that says Adazi Defense Project.
And third party.
And the information related to that says the second phase of the Adazi Defense Project will protect about 10 kilometers of coastal stretch. Okay, 10 kilometers of coastal stretch. It has commenced following the completion of the first phase in August of 2013.
Absolutely.
The project is designed to protect Adan and its environs against wave impact and reclaim land to facilitate tourism and development in the sector. And so if you are looking at this green book, this is the sea defense in Ada that is in reference now, that somebody suggests doesn't exist. And Felix is reading a daily graphic report that corroborates its existence. So those of you watching us from Ada, you must be familiar with this particular project. Let's know if, in fact, it does exist or it does not exist, beyond what Felix is quoting from the daily graphic.
Well, we were the government that executed it. Right. We engaged a contractor who was doing it. The contractor delivered. The Minister for Western Housing at the time, Honorable Collins Dowda, paid several visits. The TV cameras followed it. They showed the progress of work. We put it in a book. The daily graphic on its own went there to inspect it. They spoke to those undertaking the project. And then an MPP propagandist hiding somewhere in that takes a picture of the shoreline where there are no stones and sciences and say that the project has not existed.
This is supposed to cover 10 kilometers.
Absolutely. And the shoreline of Ada is vast. So there will be portions where you won't find any stones. So how do you then use that as base that the project we said we have done does not exist? I don't think that we should be this pedestrian and obscurantic in the debate. Again, let me move to what the president says about artist impression. Look, on the 4th of March, 2020, President Akufo-Addo visited the Ridge Hospital to inspect it, to ascertain the level of preparedness for COVID-19. He cannot say that the Ridge Hospital project is a fantasy project.
Okay.
From there, he went to Terminal 3. He cannot say that what he wanted to inspect was fantasy. And he did not limit himself to routes. He said that the projects in the Green Book are fantasy. Again, talking about artist impressions, look, we were very clear, very specific in the book. The Green Book is a 210-page publication. There are 584 pictures in the book. Out of that 584, there are 5 artist impressions. And we clearly indicate so in the book that these are artist impressions. The projects that were being depicted were projects that had started but had not gotten to a state where you could show to make any impression.
All right.
So we indeed, in the case of they included the Kumasi, the Kejetia market in Kumasi, and in that instance, it was not an artist impression that they had done. They had actually built a model of it and put it at the Kumasi Cultural Center. People actually went there to see what it would look like. The other one was Terminal 3, which had started in late 2015. And then the other one was another project, the whole airport, which has started. President Akufo-Addo cannot claim that the Kumasi Kejetia market does not exist today. It does. It is the single largest public sector capital investment project in the history of the Ashanti region. And President Mahama did it. The Terminal 3, on the basis of that, this government has told us that Kotoka International Airport has been voted as the most user-friendly or the airport with the best customer service in the whole of Africa. The whole airport exists. Indeed, now the criticism is that it was not needed, but it was there. So on what basis does President Akufo-Addo say that, first of all, 5 pictures out of 584 pictures, which is less than 1%, means that the Green Book was filled with artist impressions? The third point about roads, I beg your pardon.
So the test will be your last point for now.
Yeah, yes. I have many, but I'm sure that we'll get another. You see, the third point about roads, again, let me place it on record. President Mahama has never said anywhere or at any time that he fixed all the roads in Ghana. From page 100 to 113 of the Green Book, we list over 200 specific road projects. The introduction to that sector makes it clear that these roads are at various stages of completion. Some have been completed, some were ongoing, others had been awarded on contracts. The onus is on Pius and President Akufo-Addo to show that there's any road in there that we say has been completed that has not been done. Again, when he became president, the Cocoa Road projects were going on. He ordered a freeze of all those projects and purported to have carried out investigations. So that stalled the project for about 2 years. And if a project is ongoing and you stall it for 2 years, it will deteriorate. And once it deteriorates, the people who live there will naturally call for you to fix the roads.
Okay.
So if you create a problem and you come under pressure, there are existing roads that have not been properly done. And people say you should come and fix roads. The response to that is not to say that what your predecessor did does not exist.
Okay.
But the response is to fix it. And then there's a final point about, you see, it is important that I clarify. Pius, you get a time.
Yeah, in a minute, do that.
Look,
yeah.
Pius made a point about the Cape Coast Stadium. There's another one that they say about it too, and it's important that I use this opportunity to clear it. Something, for the avoidance of doubt, the Cape Coast Stadium was built by the NDC at a cost of $30 million, provided as a grant by the Chinese government. What Pius is talking about and let me clarify that it is not everything in the budget that gets executed. Indeed, if you want to test it, go and check the 2019 budget read by Kano Foyata. He listed about 100 routes, none of which was done because the money didn't come for it. President Kufuor in 2007 said that he was arranging financing from Austria to do the Cape Coast Stadium. Indeed, he said that he had paid about $400,000 to secure land, and then he went to inspect the land. There's a newspaper clipping of that visit. But that was about it. When he came to power, there was not a single, source of money that he had left. He had not started any process to get any money for the Cape Coast Stadium. It was President Mills who secured $30 million from the Chinese government to do the Cape Coast Stadium. So, and let me also explain something to you. No, you see, you have made a point.
1 minute.
Don't worry. I mean, we have about 30 minutes more to go, so I'm sure we'll have it. Again, they also, and he has not mentioned it, but it's something that the MPP repeats. The Tuabo gas processing plant. They say that President Kufuor started. It is not true. When oil was discovered, President Kufuor started discussions with Trinidad and Tobago. He said that he will use Trinidadian money to build a gas processing plant. Indeed, there was a place at Isiama that they had earmarked. But not a dime came from Trinidad and Tobago to do it. Again, when President Mills visited China, he got CDB to commit to do it for 1 billion. That is the money that we use.
It's okay, hold on there. So, before you were prompting me that you wanted to react to something. Okay, you go ahead.
Okay. So, in the first place, my brother is absolutely wrong in his recollection of their economic performance. If I may refresh his memory, interest rates were high, growth was very low, and I can give you a long list. Everybody, unemployment was high, the financial sector was in a mess. Everybody knows this. There is no way that you run to 2011 when we had a spike in oil production in this country. And it's even an indictment on Mr. Mahama that under former President Ivan Sata Mills, we could spike to 14. And then he handed over to him, and from 14, he brought us down to 3 point something. It's an indictment that you inherited such good economic indicators from the late Mills. You brought it, so you should stick to your own record of the 3.4 and not find solace in the oil spike growth of about 14%. I think that indicts you. But you see, I think that we need to do an audit of this Green Book properly. My understanding was that we were coming to have a conversation around infrastructure, and I will prove to you that even comparing our first 4 years with the total of the 8 years that the NDC has had, and that this Green Book does not speak to 4 years, it speaks to 8 years. And there are projects here that even went beyond the 8 years to the days of J.A. Kufuor, but they are all here. I brought documents to show to you that what we have been able to do within these 4 years is even more. And if we were supposed to do a Green Book, we'll be talking about 10 volumes of this already. Because I see pictures of even Mahama Kambu, those things, those vehicles. There are pictures here. And out of the 8 years, they are talking to us about some 584 pictures. This is it's an indictment on your leadership. But you see, asks Felix for me, page 91. The Atuabo Freeport, does it exist? The Atuabo Freeport.
The book says it exists.
The book says it is a picture.
No,
this is a picture.
No, once you look at the picture, you should look at what it says about it.
So when the man says that, there are pictures in the book that does not exist, you are here contesting. But the thing is,
you are not reading the book.
So if the thing does not exist, why do you put it in? I'm saying that does the pot exist?
No,
does the pot exist?
Okay. So the picture comes with the writing. Artistic impression of the Atuabo Freeport.
So the man says that this is a fantasy project. It does not exist in Atuabo. It only exists in the Green Book. Is this not correct, Samson? Is this not correct? What the president said, that's a fantasy project.
Is this the fraud and the misleading, those...
This is one example of them. And I'm saying that I was just glancing through. So upon proper audit, we will find more of these pictures.
Okay, so more of them.
Yes.
I'd be glad if you could show me, because if you say we have to audit, my expectation would have been that you have done the audit, and that is the basis of your rejection of it in totality, and even the projects that you and I can attest exist, you still doubt.
No.
Now, if the person, the writer, the author puts here artistic impression, and you say that is misleading, I don't understand. What does that mean?
The president said that we have pictures of projects that do not exist.
That's not what he said. That's not what he said.
What did he say? He said that these are fantasy projects that do not exist on the ground, but they exist in the Green Book.
Okay, so
I'm saying to you that this is an example of what the president said, that this Atuabu Freeport, which is this beautifully captured in the book, and the cameras can show as well, does not exist on the ground. It only exists on the book. Right. And that's exactly what the president said. And I said to you that to properly contextualize, it couldn't have meant that, oh, there was no project at all, with all the taxes our colleagues in the NDC have collected, with all the borrowing that they have done, that they could not boast of one or two projects. Of course, we can. They even put pictures of Mahama Kambu, these motor-like vehicles that carry 3 passengers. They put those pictures in this Green Book as their achievement. In total, including those pictures, they were able to marshal about only 584. I brought documentation here, even in the health sector alone, over 600 buildings. If we were to compile a Green Book, we'll have 10 volumes of this book. But I'm saying to you that, let's be fair. My understanding and appreciation of what the president said is not to suggest implicitly that for the 8 years that the NDC has been in power, they couldn't even have built one project, not one project. They renovated the
So you are saying we should ignore what the president said?
No, we shouldn't. But there's evidence. Even here, without going, and let me, when I spoke to production,
I want to have a certain understanding that they put a picture and they have written that this is an artistic impression. You say the president's understanding of artistic impression is the reality on the ground. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but the book tells us that these projects, and he said it himself, that those artistic impressions, the projects actually existed.
Oh, it doesn't say this.
But you said that here.
It doesn't say so.
No, but I'm saying that. He said that. He said it here.
You see,
that the ones
when you are talking, you said, let us be fair, let us be fair. Yes. I think you ought to be fair to facts.
Yes.
Because when the book itself says artistic impressions.
But what does that mean?
Artistic impression.
But we were told that the projects here, they exist on the ground. Yes. So how does artistic impressions exist on the ground?
Okay. So those that are there, you can read. It says newly built, being built or under construction. This one, it says
there's supposed to be a bridge.
All right.
Linking old and new Weja. Okay. And I'm saying that if we wanted to do, if my understanding was that we were going to do a content analysis of the document, I'm sure that maybe my brother, if we take this book and we conduct there's a bridge in their book that just got an indication that the Green Book speaks about a bridge that joins new and old Weja.
Okay.
The bridge does not exist, but the bridge is in the book.
So let's look at this. Look at it this way. There must be a purpose for what we are doing.
Correct.
The president says the things the NDC showed you in the Green Book as infrastructure they have done don't exist. President Mahama also says that cannot be true. So we are trying to fact check if this is the case. Now, as we said, once again, you have not been able to show us what is in the Green Book as existing on green earth that does not exist.
I just showed you one.
No. You have shown me what the picture speaks for itself, and it says artistic impression.
No, I'm
you have confused. Not shown me something they say it exists that doesn't exist.
So what they put the Freeport in the book to suggest that.
My understanding of artistic impression, if I could.
And he himself, you don't even need to make excuses for him. He was here, he spoke. He said that in the instances where they put artistic impressions, some of those projects had even started, but they couldn't take pictures at that time. So there was they took artistic impression and put it. Okay. But as I speak to you now, that Freeport, does it exist or not? I spoke about the new and old Weja Bridge. Again, in this book, you'll find the Fufusu Solar Road. That's the Fufusu Solar Road. At the time that you put it in this book, as having completed the Fufusu Solar Road, was the Fufusu Solar Road in existence in the manner you put it in the... Oh.
Indeed, they have that.
Then if you do this, it will just be a question of your word against mine. And then you will tell me that the Fufusu Solar is a long stretch.
So to the question I was asking, what is the end game? What's the purpose of the continuous reference to the Green Book as being a book that contains fantasy? What's the purpose of that?
The purpose of the comments that was made was to contextualize the whole argumentation that within the 8 or the 4 years that Mr. Mahama was in charge of affairs of this country, in which case their major trump card was just infrastructure. They failed in the other areas, economy, job creation, and even infrastructure. They are just looking at mortar and bridge. They didn't invest, for instance, in health as much as we are investing in health.
Really?
Yes. The ambulances, for instance, we can get to those ones. I'm saying to you that infrastructure is not just mortar and brick. So the whole point, if I may just answer the point, the whole point was that we want the people of Ghana to know that even with all these limited infrastructure projects that our colleagues have spoken of, there are several of the projects in this book that, as we speak, do not exist. They exist only in the imagination of my brothers. So they put artistic impressions in the book.
Okay.
But this book was sold to us to mean that these were projects that were on the ground.
Okay.
And I gave you one example right now of a project that does not exist on the ground, but it is in the book. And I say that, give us more time. Let us know that we are coming to do content analysis of this book.
Let me hold Felix to that. Wait. When you take that artistic impression, what is the purpose? An artistic impression, I got one definition. It's a sketch or drawing of someone or something produced when no photograph is available.
Absolutely.
So the suggestion is that this exists except that you don't have a photograph for it.
Absolutely. You see, that's why I said that President Akufo-Addo has not read the book. It is clear Pius has not read it. He is relying on pedestrian, low-level propaganda. You see, and we must not engage in ridiculousness.
When the people,
Pius, please.
I think it's not fair. When the people of Etuabo say that there's no free thought there.
You see something.
You say that
he is not reading the book.
You don't need to be.
And you see, for a party that haughtily claims that others don't read, it is ridiculous what you and the president are engaging in. Samson, check page 86. And I was speaking to that trouble pot. And I told you 86. That the book is clear. Check point 2. Read out point 2 of page 86. I won't read it. Read it yourself.
Page 86.
Yes.
Point
just 2. Under the artistic impression of the whole report.
Preparatory works are underway for construction to begin on the 700 million US dollars Atwabu Free Port project. So I suppose that's really about it.
Absolutely.
Preparatory works.
Absolutely.
So we have the preparatory works there.
So I told you that the artistic impression. Oh, this is Pius. Don't disrupt me. Okay, it is important that we do this. I told you that there are 584 pictures, and those pictures are by no means exhaustive. If you read Dr. Manebo Ame's introductory remarks, the foreword, he says that this does not, by any stretch of the imagination, represent everything we did.
Okay.
He speaks about hospital. They have 600 hospital projects. Even our CHIPS compounds alone, NDC 1, NDC 2, over 3,000 of them will not fit into this book.
Okay.
So it is ridiculous to suggest that this is all that we did.
Okay. So
again, you are not reading the book. You are feeding off propaganda of low-level propagandists in your party. And you repeat them even to the highest levels of government, including the president. If you have read this book, you will know that we make it clear that what we have put there is an impression of a port for which preparatory work is being undertaken. You recall that that port was hit by a lawsuit by 6 MPP MPs who argued that it contravened the GPHA Act, which gives GPHA, oh please, you are not listening. You see, you don't make claims, refuse to listen, and repeat falsehood. You are a deputy minister of information, the same position I occupied when this book was being compiled. I took my time to look through the facts. That's why I'm able to tell you the facts.
But you put the picture of a project that does not exist.
But I'm saying
you put the picture of a project that does not. What is the point?
Pious.
What is the point of to
we are not having,
people?
you see, we are not having an argument of the deaf ear. You must listen and stop this deliberate propaganda. Don't pretend that you don't understand what I'm saying. When you put an artistic impression in the book, first of all, for you to say the book is filled with it, it's a complete lie. Because 5 out of 584 cannot be filled. It is just 0.8%. It's not even 1%. Again, I have told you what they represent. There are 3 of them that have
the way we are proceeding.
Please,
the way we are proceeding.
Look. But
it will be difficult. My word against it. For instance, I spoke about the Fufusu Solar Road, for instance.
Something.
He says it
something. You know that part of the country. If you are going to your hometown and beyond, you use the Fufusu Solar Road. Everybody there knows that project exists. So stop being ridiculous, please.
Oh, he hasn't said it doesn't.
But he says it doesn't exist. That's what he's saying. How can you peddle such an untruth? Something that is so clear. That project started in 2011. By the time you got to 2015 when we put in this book, it had been substantially completed. They have about 50 community development projects, schools, water projects, hospitals, and water.
You finish.
So there can be no argument that you can sustain.
You finish.
That at the time we were drawing this book up, it had not been substantially completed. That is false. It does not even make sense. Again, something. This bit about the fact that there are only 584 pictures. So it pales into insignificance compared to what they are doing. It's another outright untruth. That is why I have relied on data. I have given you budgetary information. Please, I have given you budgetary information on the metric that you use to establish whether a government is investing more in infrastructure or not. I have used the CAPEX to GDP ratio. And I have told him he can go to Dr. Bamia for tutorials. He is a foremost proponent of that. Again, something. Let me put it on record. He comes back to repeat the same pedestrian propaganda. And the problem with the MPP, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, that there's no separation between what low-level people say and what the top echelon say. So when low-level people say that the artist impressions in the Green Book that does not exist, the president repeats it. Pious, for the avoidance of doubt, please.
These things you're saying,
for the avoidance of doubt, something.
This classification of the Ghanaian population.
Something.
Okay, Felix, you think that
why are you disrupting me?
Okay, hold on.
This classification of the Ghanaian population.
Hold on. You are a deputy minister of information.
Gentlemen,
what you know.
Gentlemen, we don't have the whole day.
Yeah, so let me finish.
And as you know, as we advertise, our time is actually up. But this is what I want you to do.
Yeah. Oh, but if you let me
this is what I want us to do to conclude.
Yeah.
Why is it the case that both parties fight over infrastructure that you don't come to office with money in your pocket to build? What's the point?
What? Something. Free SHS is not being done with President Akufo-Addo's money. Yet he touts it. What you do with the people's money, you have a right to let them know. So the fundamental principle must be there. I don't like people who approbate and reprobate. We cannot be told to restore President Akufo-Addo because he goes about singing one village, one dam, with money from the taxpayer. And then we are expected to criticize President Mahama if he projects what he has done. So we must be consistent. Okay. No government uses its own money. Every president uses taxpayers' money. It's about, again, the bit about the superior record. Let me give him one. That shatters anything. And if he likes, he can check the Ministry of Sanitation, their own documents. Something. When we came to power in 2009, water coverage.
You have just a minute.
Yes,
just a minute.
It was 54.5%. No, it was 58.5%. President Akufo had taken it from 54.5 to 58.5. President Mills took it from 58.5 to 63%. President Mahama took it to 76%. President Akufo-Addo now, because of small population growth, it has dipped to 69%. It's on the Ministry of Sanitation's website now. Because we added 109.7 million gallons in terms of production capacity. That means that water supply.
You see the misleading.
No, you see the
misleading.
You see the problem that you don't
you come to office with your manifestos and your areas of priority. It may not be fair to use what you have done in another area and to suggest that somebody is doing.
But he's the one saying that we focus on infrastructure.
In 1 minute, I'm sorry, but we have run out of time. In 1 minute, will you make an admission that the unqualified criticism of the Green Book is actually unfair, and it's unproductive. It's not healthy for the politics. The things you say don't exist do exist. You call them fraud, but they are there.
Samson, let me make the point strongly now that the criticism of the Green Book is qualified. We were told that there were.
Sorry, we just got a minute. Sorry, Felix.
The criticism of the Green Book was qualified. The president said that we were spoken to about unprecedented investments in infrastructure. Those infrastructure exist only in the Green Book and in the imagination of our colleagues. Here and on this program, without doing any serious audit of the document, no serious content analysis, page by page, we have found some faulty and misrepresentations.
I'm surprised that you allow him to say something that's so obviously false.
If I may just finish. We looked, for instance, for the Atuabo Freeport. It's not there, but it's in your book.
You have not read the book. But that is the only problem.
My brother, can I finish?
Felix,
so if you put together,
but why the writing on
Atuabo Freeport?
So if you put together, but I'm saying that even preparatory works, there's no preparatory works in Atuabo.
But that is not true.
There's no preparatory works.
Samson, what does he understand by preparatory works?
Okay, can I have my 1 minute?
We have run out of time.
Can I have my 1 minute?
We have run out of time. We take a break at this time.
He does not understand what preparatory works is.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. As I announced earlier, our next guest seated, Inusa Fuseni, is MP Tamale Central and Ranking Member Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs. He honorably is bowing out of Parliament, so he's not contesting another time. Yawabing Asamoah MP, Adenta, and Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party. He just done 1 term, but he's being battled by 4 other people. It must be a difficult time for you now. This morning, you would have wished that you were in the constituency trying to protect your turf.
I did.
Right.
It's all about service to God, country,
but of course, your constituents are watching. I hope that your delegates are also watching, and they know that you have a double task as the communications director of the party.
I believe they appreciate that.
Yeah. They'll be kind to you, I suspect so.
Thank you.
All right. So on Zoom, we have Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Director, Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD. We'll bring him to you immediately. We have him on the show. Right. So if we may start with, I hope we can start briefly on the asset declaration matter, and then we get him on, because we can deal with that very quickly and then spend the rest of the time on the Electoral Commission matter, which some people are fatigued about because we have been talking about it for a long time now. So on the question of the asset declaration issues, we know now that particularly one particular group, the ASEPA, or what is his name again, has decided to Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA, Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, has decided to focus in this area to be checking on public officers whether they are declaring their assets or they are not doing so. The last time they filed a petition as charged, according to the law, they filed a petition as charged against the Chief Justice, and they said he had failed to declare his assets. Shraj did a finding and discovered that they filed their petition against the Chief Justice on a particular date. The date on which they filed the petition was the same date that the Chief Justice also submitted his asset declaration report, so to speak. Now, let me be clear about that. They had a complaint. The date on that complaint was the 16th of December. But they lodged that complaint on the 19th of December, 2019. That's the one against the Chief Justice. Now, the 19th of December is the date that Shraj received the petition. When Shraj did its investigations, he found that it was on the same date, the 19th of December, that the Chief Justice declared his assets. So they gave a ruling and said, unfortunate, the day you brought your petition is the same date that he had declared. So we cannot find for you that the Chief Justice has not declared his assets. Then the second one, which the ruling from Shraj just came, they took their petition to Shraj on the 12th day of December 2019. Shraj wrote to the Auditor General, which has the declared assets, is the custodian of it. Shraj wrote on the 17th of December asking the auditor to confirm if Jean Mensah has filed her assets. The Auditor General replied on the 30th of December that she had not filed her declaration. But later, it was found that she had filed her declaration on the 12th day of May 2020. Yes, on the 17th day of February 2020. 17th day of February 2020. So in that regard also, Shraj's ruling is that she has filed. She has filed late, but she has filed. All of them, it doesn't matter how late they file, there's no sanction for them. Now, these MPs are in Parliament looking at the asset declaration regime and what they can do about the law. The question we are asking today is, what else can be done? Kojo Pumpuni Asante joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us, Kojo.
Thank you. Good morning to the two honorables there, as two of my favorite honorables.
Right. Let me start with you, Dr. Kojo Asante. The outcome of the two decisions by Shraj, how do you take it?
Yes. Well, thank you. Let me just make some preliminary comments before I deal with your substantive question. I think we have a problem in terms of how we are pursuing our accountability and anti-corruption agenda. Currently, as I have observed and followed very keenly, we seem to have really weakened the whole horizontal accountability structure of our anti-corruption agenda. So typically in a democracy, you would expect that the preventative side, which involves everything from internal audits, procurement supervision, asset declaration, information disclosures, and so on, which is all meant to ensure that there is integrity in public life, that the taxpayers' money is protected, have all really been weakened. And it's because the law that governs these processes are weak, both in terms of some of its design and then, of course, its enforcement, because there's too much discretion around some of those processes. So the Shraj examples you give, for example, the Constitution is very clear that you have to declare your assets before you take office. So it says before you take office. And then it says every 4 years. And then when you exit office. So I don't see the ambiguity there. And therefore, if a matter is brought and Shraj has to make a determination in terms of what kind of remedial action it has to take, I think you cannot say that, well, in spite of the Constitution, the person has still complied with the law. I think you can say, okay, yes, the person has breached the law, but this is, what we recommend. We just a slap on the wrist, don't do it again, or something like that. That's a different kind of decision. But it's also because Sraj has not elaborated through a CI the range of sanctions that should apply in some of these cases. And in some of these cases, it's not just an administrative sanction that will suffice. So suspension, demotion, other types of sanctions that you can apply, sometimes criminal. If you look at the Kenyan Public Ethics Act, for instance, the only offense that is elevated to criminal status with asset declaration is failure to declare your assets and falsely declaring. So if you intentionally do it, then that is fraud. So there are a range of things that can happen, but since the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution, Sraj is yet to elaborate on these sanctions, and as a result, it's left to discretion on what it should do today, and that does not promote equality before the law. It does not promote any deterrence effect or prevention of corrupt acts or any acts that are seen as misbehavior in the public service.
So, in Sraj's rulings, you would find Sraj often giving the purpose for the law. And in one of the decisions, Sraj said, it is for the promotion of transparency, public accountability, culture of integrity. The law, as you have looked at from the Constitution, must also be looked at from the Act itself. The Act says, an officer required to declare his assets and liabilities under this Act, who, without reasonable excuse, fails to declare, or knowingly makes a false declaration, contravenes that part of the law. So it means, therefore, from what Sraj has done over the period, particularly in these two cases we are using as examples, the Chief Justice may have filed late, but with reasonable excuse. The Sraj EC boss may have filed far late, but with reasonable excuse. So the law allows a situation where even if you don't file it before you assume the office, you can be excused. Is that not so?
Well, but it's still, the problem still remains. It goes back to the whole problem of unregulated discretion. So as you say, you use the word may because you are not apprised with the circumstances under which this particular conduct was excused. And if it was excused for the Chief Justice, was it excused for the accountant at the Ghana Publishing Authority, or is it because it's a Chief Justice or it's an EC chair?
A reason was given that these are very busy people. Someone like the Chief Justice is a very busy person. So if he's unable to file at a certain point, you may not read deliberateness into it. The chairperson of the Electoral Commission is super busy. If they are unable to file it before they assumed office, you may not say it is deliberate. In any case, by the time the complaint is filed, by the time the complaint is determined, they have already gone to file it to show that it's not as if they are running away from anything.
Well, also, that would be unfortunate interpretation of both the public policy and the principle under which a whole chapter of the Constitution is dedicated to ensure a certain proper conduct of public officers. Because we are talking about, the protection of the public interest. These are very, very powerful people. They take very powerful decisions. Their decisions, if it's not in pursuit of the public interest, but for personal gain, it will cost the public. The president is a very, very busy person, but he still has to go and swear an oath. He has to sign all manner of documentation, which if he does not, he would have breached, the oath of his office. So that cannot be an excuse. This is a regime all over the world that is to safeguard both the integrity of that public officer, but to ensure that those who make themselves available to serve the public actually pursue the public interest. So I cannot, if that is an explanation, that because when Siraj actually makes these pronouncements, it becomes law in essence. So somebody can come and say, I'm too busy. I'm very, very busy. I'm the chief of defense staff. I am very, very busy. So relatively, it's a level of busyness would excuse you from your duty. I don't think the framers of the Constitution under Chapter 24 ever conceived that could be a basis for refusing to do this. So I am hoping that this discretion is regulated through the act that the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, to make it very clear what kinds of circumstances and issues can be justified if to guide the supervisor of this regime.
So you hold
Otherwise,
on there. You hold on there.
It'll be abused.
Yeah, I will return to you so that we can look at what improvement from this experience can be made to the law as is being considered now by Parliament, and view it also from the recommendations that Siraj has made in both decisions that we are using now, the recommendations that it makes. Because the law says when Siraj does the investigations, it may take such action as it considers appropriate in respect of the results of the investigations, or if he didn't have to make an investigation, but whoever the complaint is against admitted when the complaint was filed that, yes, we have not been able to comply. In these two examples, nobody admitted that they have not been able to file, except that it was discovered on the facts that they did it late. And in the issue of the EC chairperson, it was far late. Now, so, Abu News Officer,
yes,
Siraj says the chapter of the Constitution, that's 24, right, on which this regime comes is Code of Ethics, Code of Conduct. So they take the view that if it is just Code of Conduct, whilst the conduct may lead to criminal sanctions or something else, the punishment often is not as if there is an intention to punish you. So in these circumstances, the decisions they have taken, it should be deemed as fair. Not to have, they haven't done anything to them. They just gave a caution that you have done it late. Don't do it next time. It's not nice.
Well, Samson, I think it is proper for me to extend my sincere felicitations to you because it's a long time.
That's right.
The last time was when you were downstairs.
That's true.
And to wish my brother Bamia Samoa well in the impending primaries. I know he's facing stiff competition in his constituency.
Okay.
Samson, you quoted exactly from the decision of Siraj in the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability against Mrs. Jean Adukwe Mensah, in which you said the purpose of Chapter 24 of the Constitution is to engender, encourage high sense of integrity, engender political or public accountability. Now, Article 24 of the Constitution is part of the chapters of the Constitution and starts from Article 284 to 287. or 288, because the interpretation is part of it. Now, the provisions of the Constitution, it has been held in many cases, are justiciable. And it's important when
provisions of the Constitution are justiciable, meaning what?
You can go to court to enforce them.
Okay.
You can go to court to enforce them.
All right.
And so when an anti-corruption body bemoans its capacity to enforce provisions of the Constitution that frown upon an act or an omission which is in contravention of the Constitution, then you have a problem. Because the Constitution tells us in Article 2, which is enforcement of the Constitution, a person who alleges that any act or omission of any person is inconsistent with or is in contravention of a provision of this Constitution may bring an action in the Supreme Court for a declaration to that effect. Clear. In the case of Articles 284 to 287 that deals with the conduct of public offices, if the contravention is in relation to any public officer, the jurisdiction of the Commissioner of Shraj is invoked. If the contravention deals with the Commissioner himself, it's related to acts or omission of the Commissioner because of the time-tested maxim in law that you can't be a judge in your own cause. The contravention will be a subject matter of investigation by the Chief Justice. So if the Chief Justice is accused of contravening the provisions of the Constitution, it is the Commissioner who investigates him. And if it is the Commissioner, it is the Chief Justice who investigates him. So when I see in a report of Siraj, in the case numbers CHRAJ 357/2009, in which Siraj admits that at the time that the petitioners filed their complaint with them, up to the time that they wrote to the Auditor General for verification as to whether or not the Commissioner had complied, the results were negative. The Commissioner, the Church establishes without doubt that the Commissioner was in default of compliance to the provisions of the Constitution. It beats my imagination how a commission can come to the conclusion that the Commissioner is in default, and at the end of his decision comments the Commissioner. You see why our anti-corruption fight is having difficulties. It's having difficulties because it appears to me.
I don't remember the commendation.
Oh, it's here.
Yes, show us the commendation. But
the commission commends the complainant for discharging its civic duty.
Yes, so it's the complainant.
Wait. But when they're shivering, you don't go ahead. By helping to hold public officers accountable, the commission equally commends the respondent for her cooperation. Cooperation in what?
Cooperation in the process.
What process?
No, they are certain people that when complaints are filed against them, their attitude to the complaint filed against them is either belligerent, non-cooperation. But in this case, she was cooperative.
What was the cooperation?
And they commend her for the cooperation.
What was
They don't commend her for filing her declaration.
What was so Samson? As I'm leaving Parliament, and I hope to be part of the people who will be deepening the jurisprudence and the effects of law on public servants in this country. Samson, if a complaint is brought against a public officer, and the public officer files
a response
or answer. In this particular case, what Jim Mensah simply did was to go to the Auditor General's office on the 17th day of February 2020 and file her declaration. More than 1.5 years after she had been appointed Electoral Commissioner.
She was appointed on the 1st of August 2018.
And she filed on the 17th of February 2020, more than 1.5 years.
And the law's requirement is that you must file before you assume office.
And if you go by the Act, in any case, not beyond 6 months.
Not beyond 6 months, it's applicable to when you exit office.
No.
Is that not so?
No. If you go by the Act, I mean, I have a difficulty with the Act, but let's go by the Act. If you even go by the Act, it says in any case, not beyond 6 months.
All right.
So says that, and that is Act 550, Section 1, or Section 1, subsection 3. It shall be the responsibility of officers required to make the declaration under this Act to obtain the forms from the office of the Auditor General. 4. The declaration shall be made by the public officer A before taking office, B at the end of every 4 years, and C at the end of the term of his office, and shall in any event be submitted not later than 6 months of the occurrence of any of the events specified in the subsection.
Right. So you have
even if you assume office and you are unable to do it before assuming office, in any case, don't do it. Do it within 6 months.
6 months.
She did it 1.5 years. 1 year, 6 months after she was appointed into office.
But the
and
law
you still commend her for doing that.
Commend her for the cooperation.
What cooperation?
In the investigation.
What cooperation was that?
There are people when they serve them the complaint.
They won't file.
They will find all legal means. They will even take Shiraj to court. They will do all sorts of things.
Have you heard of any such thing?
Oh, it has happened always. Always does.
No. Shiraj will always investigate, and people have basis to challenge the decision, but not cooperation. People always cooperate with Shiraj, but they challenge. So you see the data bank.
The 6 months window. If you fail to do it before you assume office, the 6 months window, is it not your understanding that according to the law, failure with reasonable excuse is allowed? If you have made a false declaration and it is found that the false declaration was made unknowingly, that one too is allowed.
Yeah, because the law uses, law fixes specific intent on persons who declare. So knowingly.
So in this case,
so if you declare and it's false, you need to prove that you knowingly did that.
Right.
So I don't have a problem
so
with that.
In this case, is it your contention that where you can be excused, even if you had a reasonable excuse, or even if the declaration was false but unknowing, all of that must be within the 6 months.
All of that must be within the 6 months.
Oh, okay.
All of that must be within the 6 months. First of all, the law provides that before assuming office, so the 6 months is just a waiver for you in the event that you are unable to do it within 6 months. The law says, and it's a mandatory provision, shall comply with the provision within 6 months.
Right. Let's hear Yaobabinga Samuel. And we're using these two examples because they are the only ones that exist now for us to, and they are the most recent of the CJ.
But I thought I should have concluded.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that, look, Shiraj, yes, it's true. Article 287 is not expansive enough. Does not show exactly what they do, what they should do. But you see, any action appropriate, read together with Article 2 of the Constitution, where there is an obvious breach of the Constitution, will definitely have a remedy.
Okay.
The commissioner can go to court for a declaration that that public officer has breached the provisions of the Constitution.
Okay.
And then ask for consequential release. You see, we must expand the frontiers of our jurisprudence. You don't just sit back and say that because the provision appears not to give me the tools to deal with public officers.
Or it doesn't define the things I should do, even though it gives you discretion.
Discretion.
It says you will take the action that you find appropriate.
And then you interpret that discretion to mean you can only issue administrative sanctions. That is where the lacuna is. That is where the weakness is.
I'll return to ask you whether Shiraj cannot give them fines and say pay X amount of money or do so and so because you have breached it. But if you read the act, it says failure to declare or knowingly making false declaration shall be a contravention. That's in the Constitution. Shall be a contravention of this Constitution,
yes.
And shall be dealt with in accordance with Article 287, which you referred to earlier. All right. Yes. What do you say?
Since the last time I saw you, your hair is rapidly growing.
Yes.
You are thinking too much.
Yes. No, since January, I decided to leave it on.
Is that so?
Yes.
Wow. Today's topic reminds me of friends of the truth and enemies of lies. Do you remember?
I do.
You remember the things that happened? Friends of the truth, enemies of lies. Who is right? But essentially, what we are dealing with is critical because the state, and in particular in countries like ours, fledgling democracies which are growing, the state happens to be the center of wealth. The state is the one that husbands our wealth and literally distributes it. And therefore, inherent in that function is the notion of favoritism, nepotism, corruption, and all those things. So our perpetual search for effective means of ensuring that fairness will be employed in managing our commonwealth. Now, that concern we haven't dealt with effectively up to now. But I disagree with Kojo, Dr. Kojo Asante, when he says that we are weakening. Because we are not weakening, it's not there. We are actually building, but it's not strengthening fast enough. It's not as if we had an effective structure that we are degrading or downgrading as we go forward. The structure has not been effective. And I'll tell you why immediately. Look at the Asset Declaration Act 550. Something. Our concern over the years, we all know it's not been effective, is that, and I was with GI, we've been debating and looking, I think, at the wrong place before the right place. We thought a lack of publication was the problem, and that if we were to publish it, people would. But then there was a tension between publication and reach.
The advocacy has been for two things:
publication,
verification, and publication.
Yeah.
Because the Auditor General receives it, but it doesn't have power to verify that what you have brought, in fact, if the envelope actually contains anything or just an empty paper.
Exactly. What I'm saying, the publication was supposed to take care of verification.
Okay.
We were looking for verification within publication.
You're right.
So the question has been about how do you determine whether it has been filed and it is true? You publish it for everybody to know. How do you verify? People who know the person must be able to tell the world that this is true or false. So that tension has been there. Both tension and reach, that suppose the person were to hide it with a relative, a wife, a sister, a brother? How do you get there? So then there was a question of how far you also go, spouse and all that. These two things, the people who have argued against them have said that in our cultural milieu, if you publish, you are inviting damage, literally, onto the person's capacity to even flourish as a person in society, because the entire extended family will descend on you. That's the positive side. The negative side is that you attract criminal activity to your person. And then reach was, how far? How far do you go? Inadvertently, a relative of yours, a distant relative of yours becomes a victim of your desire to be a public servant. That was also difficult. But this weekend, I must admit I've had an eureka moment.
You went for a discussion on this.
Yes.
But what you just mentioned, so that we don't leave that part.
Yes.
Verification, publication.
Yes.
The advocacy has also been that if these are not done, you are supposed to declare before you assume office.
Yes.
Then you declare every 4 years.
Yes.
And then when you finish your office, you declare again.
Yes.
Now, say you finish office and you declare. Because it wasn't publicized, nobody knows what you have gotten which you can't explain.
That is where I'm going now.
Okay.
I'm saying that this weekend, and Inusa was there, this weekend we were out of town pre-discussing the conduct of public officers bill before we lay it on the floor. And I've had an eureka moment. Honestly, I must confess that in looking at the new bill, I think it has clarified this question about verification and reach. It has landed it squarely on even compliance with the bare standards that we have. But if we were to comply even with the bare standards that we have, we would indirectly be ensuring verification later. But the biggest problem we have now is compliance. And that is the subject of the two cases that you have had. Because it is assumed that nobody will know whether you did it or not, because it's not published and otherwise, then people really don't bother. And it's voluntary. There is nothing that compels you to file. You understand? The question you asked me, that's where I'm coming. I'm saying, I've had this eureka moment, and I'm thinking that if we can even compel people on pain of some sort of sanction to file, then that commitment alone has put them in a situation where they have to be alert and careful.
All right.
You understand what I'm saying? So for me, those two decisions, and in particular the decision, the G. Mensah decision, is an excellent piece of jurisprudence from the Commission. Excellent piece of jurisprudence. Because the Commission has laid out what we haven't done over the years to give effect to Article 287. Essentially, because 287, in telling them 287.2 says the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, or the Chief Justice of the case may take action as it considers appropriate. The Commission argues in G. Mensah that action appropriate is administrative sanctions, and that if you criminalize it immediately, you remove the ethical part of integrity, because there are two aspects of integrity in the public space. You know, you have the ethics part, which is not necessarily criminal, more or less preventive, and then the criminal part, which is egregious, malicious, and willful intent. It never goes away. But immediately you criminalize the ethical part ab initio, you've left no room at all for honest mistakes. You've left no room at all.
So in this circumstance, the criminal parts will include where you knowingly under-declare or you hide some of what you have to declare.
Yes.
Or you declare something that doesn't exist because you intend to use corrupt means to acquire it.
You knowingly do that.
Okay.
Then the Commission is saying, in the new COPO, for briefness, conduct of public officers, in the new COPO, the Commission is saying that the SHRAJ should have discretion to refer the criminal ones to the Attorney General. But initially, in terms of ensuring compliance, that you will file, according to the 3 criteria, before office, during office 4 years, and after you've left, they must have a certain raft of administrative sanctions to ensure that you do that.
Okay.
And how do they do that? They made certain propositions. They've made certain propositions. And I think we must interrogate those propositions exhaustively. Because they are saying, for example, that before you take office as a public officer, and don't forget, This thing is from as low as directors in state institutions.
Right.
You have thousands, literally thousands of people who should declare their assets. If I'm not afraid, I would say maybe in excess of 100,000 officials who must declare their assets to the Auditor General, sealed, and he takes custody. Now, charges are saying that as part of the administrative sanctions, that they need elaborated pursuant to Article 287,
right,
in order to make sure that their sanctions are, their discretion is clearly stated under the same constitution. They cannot, because of the discretion, they cannot keep it to their chest. Everybody must know the administrative sanctions, but they are suggesting that before taking office, you must produce a receipt of filing. And that receipt, if you don't have it, should disable you
from occupying,
from taking that office that you have been
even
given.
The president, that before he swears the oath,
every public officer must have his receipt in his wallet. Just like you have your Ghana card or your passport. Some people carry their passports in their top pocket around all the time. I don't, but some do. So you must have your receipt handy, so that the moment you are pronounced, Inusa, the outgoing MP, will not be minister again, but when he was minister, Inusa about to become Minister of Roads, produce your receipt. Otherwise, you don't get that office.
Right.
In that case, if you haven't filed, there will be no time to run and go and file and bring a receipt.
Right.
Then you have forfeited the office.
Right.
There will be no room to now rush to go and file saying that I was too busy, or I forgot, and I wasn't in public office. The thing was thrust upon me suddenly. I didn't expect it. No, you, as soon as you are named, you must be, and potential office holders would also prepare the asset, because you know there are interlocking laws. You have an income tax self-declaration regime, which ought to make you know your assets all the time, because your income tax regime covers all you own. You understand? So if you are complying for income tax,
and all the time we talk about asset, and this Auditor General likes us not to forget that there's also liabilities. You're supposed to declare both your assets and your debts, your liabilities.
Correct. Correct. So if you were complying with your income tax rules, you will find it so easy.
Okay.
The day you are named as a public officer, within 48 hours, 24 hours, to have your form filled and filed, so that you can have a receipt to present on the day you are nominated.
Okay.
If you are not in a position to take office within a week or two with your receipt, or we can have a timeline. By the time you are named, if within a week you don't produce your receipt, and you produce a receipt after you are named, you're out.
All right.
And for those the
president has to swear
for you to speak. Let me land.
And for those the president has to swear in, the president must insist that if you don't show the receipt, I won't swear you in.
You're out.
Okay.
Then they are talking about being deprived of income during the 4 years. That if during the 4 years you don't present proof of refiling, then your income should be detained. Then the most interesting bit is when you leave office.
Exactly.
They are saying that if you leave office,
your benefits,
and you don't file, your benefits should be held on to until you file. You understand? And at that stage, I believe that a comparison can even be made, even though the rules haven't yet reached the level where we are talking publication, or even the question of what disclosure means. Can the Auditor General look at them by himself? The conditions are given, unless there's a problem, and then the secular argument comes. What if there is no problem? How do you determine when there is a problem?
Right. So let me bring in Dr. Kojo Asante. What do you say about the proposals made by Shraj? And if I may go over that quickly, Shraj says one of the effective ways to ensure speedy compliance is to disable relevant public officers from taking office or receiving any emolument or benefits from office until they can show that they have complied with the law, that they have declared. That the new bill should specifically provide that appointing authority should require proof of declaration of assets and liabilities before appointees are allowed to take office. In the case of elected officials like the President and members of Parliament, the bill should specifically provide that they show evidence of having declared their assets and liabilities before they are sworn into office, since there is sufficient time between when they are elected and when they are sworn into office to comply with Article 2861A. The bill should also specifically provide that elected or appointed public officers to whom Article 286 applies shall not be entitled to any emolument or benefit of office until they have complied accordingly. What do you say about these recommendations?
Yeah, thank you, Samson. Yes, you know, I wanted to be at the committee's meeting in Koforidua, but I couldn't. But we have submitted a memo, you know, drawing the committee's attention to a number of issues currently in the memo. I mean, for example, it's the verification provisions in clause 55 is wholly insufficient. It comes back to the same problem where we're trying to limit it, you know, to you know, when somebody finds out that somebody has breached something. I mean, if you read the Constitution, there is no way in which you can even ask for clarification if there is no verification. So how does the Auditor General ask for clarification? How does the Auditor General know that somebody is knowingly or misleading? Or and I think that when we try to sort of restrict ourselves this way or constrain ourselves, we are not helping the process. So I think we really need to look at, you know, how we take this agenda forward. Now let me deal with the substantive issue that you have raised. First of all, I think we have to make it very clear that, for me, I don't have any problem with administrative sanctions and criminal sanctions cohabiting. If you go through the Public Financial Management Act, there are many administrative sanctions that are there. There are also criminal sanctions that apply, and it's for a clear reason. So the reason why, for example, the Kenyan Act only elevates the act of not complying with the act with the asset declaration regime and knowingly misleading to the criminal status, tells you that it takes those two issues very, very seriously. It's a public policy matter. So I don't think SRAJ should have any worries, because currently SRAJ doesn't have prosecutorial powers. Even if it investigates corruption, it needs to either refer it to the OSP or the AG. It does not mean that the fact that it doesn't have criminal powers, that means that he should not be able to refer to any criminal sanctions or investigate matters that might actually lead to criminal sanctions. So I think we should have that clear.
In the anti-corruption bodies,
I actually prefer.
Yeah, the CDD. Yeah. The CDD. In your memo, you have an issue with the direction in this new law for the SRAJ to make referral to the Attorney General. You want him to do so to the OSP, and why so? What's the rationale? What are you afraid of?
No, it's just to make it consistent with the law. So as the law currently stands, yes, it refers to the Attorney General, but by the OSP law, there's also another avenue in respect of corruption. So that's what we are just saying, that we shouldn't forget that there's an OSP law that also allows SRAJ to refer criminal cases to. So, okay. But I wanted to say that for me, the two problems we have had over the years is that we don't have enough regulations, particularly to regulate discretion. And we also don't have enough administrative sanctions. So our first port of call is to go to criminal sanctions. And that sometimes is what inhibits people's ability to deal with corruption. If somebody had done something and you say, okay, as SRAJ is proposing, you know, we are basically, you are not going to take your appointment because you have not discharged your asset declaration responsibilities, that person will be forced. If they want to take on the appointment, they will have to do that. And that is really an administrative process. And if you look around the world, that is the process that a lot of people use. And because we don't have regulations around this, that is why it is left to a lot of discretion. So I am sure whether it's the CJ or the EC chair, when you come into office, You don't get a sheet of paper that tells you that all of these things have to be discharged, once you come into office. That should be an administrative procedure that every officer, public officer who comes into office has.
All right.
Shraj actually proposed ethics officers so that the ethics officer will give you the list of things that you have to discharge before, once you take office. Okay. And I think if we do those things, it would really help us and try to make this
now I wanted to know
effective.
I wanted to know, because you are unhappy with the outcome in the 2 cases we are using in reference now, what would you have wished that Shraj had done, even with the current situation of the power they have within the law? What would you have wished Shraj should have done to the EC chairperson and the CJ?
Well, it's simple. I think for me, what I don't agree with Shraj on those 2 cases is to say that the 2 people have discharged their responsibilities. They have not, right? So you have to first accept the crime or accept the misconduct, and then say, well, but because maybe you have not shown any actions of this sort in the past, this is your first misconduct. We are basically just warning you. We are giving you a warning. Please don't repeat it again. That's a different judgment from saying, well, the law has not been breached, in effect. And that's where I have a problem. So I think that distinction has to be made, that no, you have not complied with the constitutional obligation, but you don't have a history of not
doing so,
this behavior, and therefore,
all right. So we have heard Koja Asante, and obviously there's a bit of a problem with his line there. Thank you very much. Hold on, we'll go to the next issue. We'll be going for a break, but before we do that, just a minute each for you to give us your final point of view on this. This particular law, which has been in Parliament, is beginning to behave like the RTI law. It's been in Parliament for such a long time. After the RTI, it's the second longest. What's the problem? Why are you guys not passing it?
Well, the problem is multifaceted. And I disagree in some respects with the submissions of my brother, Bobia Samoa. And I think that where a duty is imposed on a public officer by law, there is an additional duty to comply with that duty.
Okay.
And so, if the law says, as a public officer, you have a duty to ensure that you fill these forms, failure to discharge that duty is an infringement of the law. And so, I agree with Koja Asante. When you use the discretion given you by the Constitution in such a way as not to exact punishment, it weakens the fundamentals of what you want to do, and that is what is happening. And when you said some people even put, many people can even put, I said it to Kofredwa, everybody almost burst into laughter. You must think outside the box. You must contemplate situations where people can do that. Why? Because if you don't get yourself into problem by the present regime, your asset declaration will not be opened. So people can deceive knowingly. And that is why I believe there must be instances, robust provisions in the law for verification and probable publication.
Okay.
You have elected to be in public office. That means you are prepared to live with the vagaries of public office, of the dictates of public office.
Okay.
Yes, the breach of the law does not necessarily mean criminal law. You can also breach administrative law. You can breach administrative rules. If you persistently come to work late in Joy FM, you can be suspended. Your pay can be withheld. You can be queried. You can be warned. All manner of things. Ultimately, you may even be dismissed. These are all legal processes, but they are not necessarily criminal. So what we are saying is that these provisions have not existed. We have not elaborated them. Shraj is now saying...
Wait. You know that Shraj, the former boss of Shraj, Loretta Lamte.
Right.
Richard Nyama took a petition for her removal.
Yes.
I prosecuted that case.
Right.
She committed a breach of the, including of the Rent Act, which said you shouldn't pay 2 years advance for rent.
Right.
She suffered. She left. She was removed from her office. Wait, Charlotte say breaches of procurement law.
Yes.
She lost her office.
Yes. Something.
Electoral Commission breach of the Constitution.
I am saying that we have not elaborated. These instances you are saying have been done in breach of the elaboration. So that we are now about to elaborate, for me, is the most excellent thing that has happened to us. When I began, I said I had an eureka moment. This thing has been lying in Parliament for several years, the conduct of public officers. Perhaps because the parliamentarians may not even have appreciated what's at stake. And I'm saying that now, I realize, as an anti-corruption campaigner, I realize that what's at stake as a first step is ensuring compliance. Compliance cannot be criminalized. Beyond compliance, then there are the steps about knowingly falsifying and all those things. And they are criminal. Nobody is saying that. Nobody is saying that you can have an exclusive administrative jurisdiction.
Non-compliance can render a person unfit for office.
Yeah, but that's administrative.
Yes, it's not administrative.
But
when you go ahead to prosecute, then you become a criminal.
No,
in the law, in section 55, or where was it? There's a particular provision.
Yes.
You are saying that there should be reference to the Attorney General.
Yes, not all.
When it's going to Attorney General, we can anticipate what is going to happen.
But
that's where CDD says, and the Ghana Integrity, the anti-corruption group says, don't limit it to Attorney General.
No.
I know one of the suspicions. If you are in office, Attorney General is a political person, it's a party person. They may not prosecute you because you have breached the law. So if you give it to the OSP, they may prosecute you.
That is why the OSP
I also
is here
have
now.
the view
You had your 1 minute.
That, look,
then let's go on with
read
this.
Article 2.
You had your 1 minute. Why am I not getting my 1 minute? You read your. I thought this was my 1 minute.
It does not preclude the commissioner from going to court for a declaration.
Okay, thank you very much.
Look,
we'll take a break here.
That's not fair to me.
Yes,
that's not fair to me.
I gave you 1 minute.
Nowhere, but he's taking it back. Nowhere have I said that administrative sanctions exclude what do you call it? Criminal sanctions. They are both in the public officers' conduct of. And I'm also saying that the sunshine rules are being expanded on a daily basis, including the OSP.
All right.
Our government has brought in an OSP which has been established. That OSP operates independently of the Attorney General. So we are expanding the place of sunshine. RTI has been passed, and now OCO is going to be passed.
All right.
We are in a good place.
Obviously, what the CDD and other anti-corruption organizations are asking, you will do it in the law.
This is one law that the people of Ghana must get involved in.
You're welcome back. This is News File, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. My guest this moment, the Honorable Inusa Fuseni and Yabuabinga Sama and Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante of the CDD. The earlier issue we discussed, there's a lot of messages some of you have brought in, of course, including counter evidence. There's somebody who is standing at a location he says is the Adazi defense, and he brought me pictures to counter what was said earlier. All right, thank you, George Tanan, Jillian No. Thank you for those stuff you sent in. Let me just share just a few. Divine says that that reason of being busy cannot hold for public office holders who fail to declare their assets. Are they too busy that they don't even have time to bath, go to the salon, eat, etc.? Wrong is wrong. That's what he says. Nana Hesse Ojri says, NDC boasts of the Ridge Hospital. I was born in 1983 at Ridge Hospital. Nana, I didn't know your age. I didn't know you are that young. My grandmother died at Ridge Hospital in 1987. It's Kwachio Fosu telling us that Ridge is an achievement of the Mahama administration I'm sure you saw rich before what it is now. I think that's the point they are making. Is that not so? Right. Then Vincent also sends me pictures of the matter that the defense matter that came up. All right. So as a lawyer, there's a way I verify things. You have sent me a picture, but I'm not exactly sure if that is where you are standing. But I'll take it on face value for now. Samuel Brian Boabing says, there's no investment better than free SHS in Ghana's political history. Comparison of records is an exercise in mediocrity according to the NDC standard bearer, Mr. Mahama. So what has changed? Why is Felix singing another song now? What is there to compare apart from the corrupt stewardship that has landed some of his appointees into jail? President Akufo-Addo's achievements in 3 years, 5 months, and 6 days is unmatched. NDC's biggest achievement was corruption. Okay, so, and you think this is a fair statement of the situation? I think the politicians can be fair to yourselves. Deal with the facts, and then you can challenge the facts. Okay. The non-existent Keta Harbour project, please, let's also pay attention to that. And this is coming from Peter. Okay. I think I can pause here, and then we proceed with the Electoral Commission and matters arising from the Electoral Commission and the questions of the need to compile a new register. Let's listen to President Mahama, Haruna Idrisu, Osaichi Mensah-Bonsu, and Albert Ahin of Codeo, and return to do this discussion.
Never have we in the history of this Fourth Republic experienced such a strange situation where 6 months to an election, we are all unsure what register we're going to use for the vote. It has never happened in the Fourth Republic. Never have we in the history of the Fourth Republic, since our population threatened to be disenfranchised, the bungling inefficiency and perceived partiality of our once revered electoral. We all await the hearing in court tomorrow to determine that we have a flawed or we have an election that we have confidence in, that the will of the people has been properly expressed. As a party, we have participated in every election in the Fourth Republic, and we of accepting results of elections whenever we have believed in the integrity. As leader of the NDC, I wish to serve notice that we shall do all our parts to ensure that our country remains peaceful and that the electoral process proceeds smoothly. But, and a big but, let nobody assume that we will accept the results of a flawed election.
Not a vote we could win or easily win, but we are persuaded to stand by the Ghanaian public, whose right to vote remains entrenched and guaranteed under the 1992 Constitution. We cannot fathom, nor appreciate or understand the desperation of President Nana Addo Dankwa and the incompetence of the Electoral Commission to want to compel Ghanaians to only 2 primary documents, a passport and a national identity card issued by the National Identification Authority party. So none of us owe our citizenship or hold our citizenship at the pleasure of the President or the Electoral Commission. You have seen the due disregard of the Electoral Commission chairperson. 2 incompetent instruments laid and withdrawn. She did not even appear before the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. We in the NDC, we can make one pledge to you. On on behalf of President John Dramani Mahama, as he then was, Excellency President Mahama. Within 100 days of President Mahama being declared winner of the 2020 elections, we will make it natural for any Ghanaian attaining 18 years to walk freely to any office of the Commission to be registered as a citizen of Ghana.
The report of any committee is usually generated by the chairman acting in tandem with the clerk of the committee. When you have produced it, you submit it to the committee for the committee to peruse it. If the chairman plans anything in the report and it comes up for discussion, the committee members could raise objections that what you are inserting does not reflect what transpired during the meeting. We send them back to memory lane. In 1992, when the first registration was done, birth certificate was not part of it. In 1995, when we had to do a re-registration of the entirety of Ghanaians, and it's been made to appear that this is the first time Ghanaians are going to be re-registered. In 1995, we did a re-registration of everybody in this country. The Electoral Commission did so. Nobody complained. In 2012, a re-registration happened in this country. Nobody complained. You know that birth certificates were not part of it. What has changed today?
People don't have the NIA cards. They don't have the passports. So we need to be very careful so that we can have a lot of people participating in the process. If you go to the villages, how many people have passports in the village? It's only when you have the intention to travel that you might want to possess a pass. As regards the NIA card, as I'm speaking to you now, I don't have one. And nobody in my household has one because we tried and tried and tried and we couldn't get it. You see, so I can foresee, or Cornel sees that in other areas it could be the same. And it's so sad that, Parliament has passed the CI 126. Otherwise, this thing should be looked at. Even now, we are still urgent, but there should be a second look taken at this particular problem. You see, because we are saying that if we are not careful as a nation, we might have problems at the various registration centers. People are going to be disillusioned. People are going to have to challenge people who are being vouched for, and there can be a recipe for disaster.
All right, so from Albert Ahen, let's go to the phones directly and do a very quick one with David Asante. David Asante is the convener of the political pressure group Let My Vote Count Alliance. Why do we have him here? Because the alliance says that it has discovered over 500,000 fake voters' ID cards to suggest the reasons for a rejection of the voters' ID card as a part of the registration process to be done by the Electoral Commission. David Asante, thank you for joining us. Hello, David. Okay, David is on Zoom. Hello, David. Thanks for joining us. Okay, we'll sort David's thing out and get to him to show us where these 500,000 fake voters' ID cards are. Now, Mr. Kojo Asante, Dr. Kojo Asante, first, you were part of the civil society organizations, about 18 of them, that began the advocacy against the EC's reasons for seeking to change the entire system that it needs for a 2020 process. As we sit now, we can say all of you have lost that argument. The EC has a mandate and it is discharging that mandate. It is going to do a new registration and proceed in a manner that it deems fit to organize a credible election. Why must we continue this debate and discussion about particularly the exclusion of the voters' ID? Why must chiefs, the National House of Chiefs, all of them come in and seek to suggest that the EC was doing something wrong? Okay, we lost Dr. Kujau Asante too. We'll get both of them back on the line. Yes, Yunus of Seni, that's a question you can equally deal with.
Well,
can't we move on? That's what I mean.
We can move on if we don't have those matters sorted out. And all the time when you hear arguments, they reverse the established laws of this country. And that's why people are very concerned. Number one, the Electoral Commission is a creature of the Constitution. It has a mandate. It's also got functions. Article 45 of the Constitution clearly spells out the functions of the Electoral Commission. They have no any other function apart from the functions stated in Article 45. In fact, they haven't got the function to determine the citizenship of this country. They have not got that function. It's not in the Constitution. They have not got the function. In fact, the first function is Article 45 of the Constitution. And Article 45.
So wait, you said they haven't got any function
to determine the citizenship
apart from the function spelled out in 45.
Yes.
So I open 45F. They can perform such other functions as may be prescribed by law.
There is no law, and the Electoral Commission Act gives them no function to determine the citizenship of the country.
Okay.
Now, and that law, even that law, must be consistent with the provisions of this Constitution. So that omnibus clause or provision that you have read must conform to the specific provisions. So if a function of the Electoral Commission is at variance with the provisions so stated, that provision will start down. Now, so simple. What is compile? When we say an Electoral Commission is to compile a register, what does it mean? That is the operative word in Article 45A. And by the advanced learned dictionary, the Black Law Dictionary, compile is just to aggregate from various sources. That's compile. You aggregate from various sources.
The law says it shall compile and then review.
So aggregate from various sources and review from time to time. That is why there is Article 42 in the Constitution. Article 42 says every citizen of Ghana of 18 years and above and of sound mind has the right to vote, underlined. So it's creating, it's not even creating, it's affirming a fundamental right.
Has the right first to be registered?
No, has the right to vote.
To be registered before to vote?
No, has the right to vote and is entitled. That's what the Constitution says.
Okay.
It's entitled to be registered. That entitlement to get onto the register is what the Electoral Commission has to do. So compiling the register means taking the citizenship of this country from various sources of the Constitution to do that.
Okay.
Now, so that is why we have said every document matters in this matter. Every document matters in this matter. Because number one, who has arrogated to the Electoral Commission to determine who qualifies? Who has arrogated that?
Has the Electoral Commission suggested that it is seeking to determine who a Ghanaian is?
Yes.
How? How did you say that?
You sent me their address. The Electoral Commission has made a profound statement that because people got onto the register, which people were otherwise not qualified, the fruit of the exercise was poisoned because the tree was a poison tree. They have said that. You have not read that. They have also said that to compare, to upgrade the register is to pour old wine in new bottles. They have said that. They are visiting. They are saying that you are visiting old scenes on new activities.
Right.
And I'm saying, I'm just simply asking the Electoral Commission, what are the old scenes?
The old scenes include that the register now, which is to be replaced, is poisoned because there are names there that shouldn't be there. Hold on 1 minute. Hold on 1 minute. The same Supreme Court, through the Abu Ramadan, Evans Nemakon, and Kwesi Danso cases, managed to get the EC to audit that register and remove some of the names.
Okay, so
we know also.
I like something.
We know also before that that Dr. Kodja Farijan had said that our register is so bloated. David Asante of the Let My Vote Count Alliance, you say you have discovered in excess of 500,000 fake voters' ID cards. Where is this from?
Thank you very much, Samson. Let me say good morning to your good self. Good morning also to your distinguished panelists. And then good morning to our viewers and those listening to us. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on this particular matter. The Let My Vote Count Alliance, as part of our activities in the last almost 14 months, set out on a mission to investigate the credibility of the electoral register, because we had earlier advanced a lot of arguments to fortify our claim for the creation of a new voters register in previous election year, which was actually turned down. And I'm happy you mentioned the fact of the Abu Ramadan case. Before I move on to the over 500,000 fake ID cards that our research finding has put on the table, Samson, give me a second opportunity to speak on the NHIS cards. Are you aware, after the Supreme Court ordered and the Electoral Commission came out to tell us they have expunged 56,000 NHIS card holders from the register, it was required that the EC would give those individual Ghanaians the opportunity to re-register and have their names on the electoral roll. As we speak now, we have over 27,000 Ghanaians out of the 56,000 who did not come back to re-register. 29,000 out of the 56,000 that were deleted and expunged by the EC came back to re-register. From the records and from our research findings as Let My Vote Count Alliance, 27,000 Ghanaians out of the 56,000 names that were expunged did not show up to register. So their ID cards and their accompanying details have been deleted from the central database of the Electoral Commissioner in conformity to the Supreme Court's ruling. And yet, those people never showed up to register. So they have ID cards, all right, but the ID cards are not in the EC's database. On the day of election, they will be denied access to voting. They will be disenfranchised. A terrible situation awaiting.
No, but why? Is the solution to that? Is the solution to that not the limited voter registration exercise? Nobody stops them from re-registering. The Supreme Court supervised the auditing of the voters register under Abu Ramadan. You are saying they didn't do a good job, or what?
Well, Samson, the focus of my presentation is to establish the fact that there are too many hitches lingering around the credibility of the electoral roll. This is just one of the minor cases I have stated. I am talking about a substantive matter like we going out and spending about 14 months on a research mission. Then we come out with findings that there are financial institutions which record sometimes minimum of 5 and maximum of 8 individuals who show up to transact business and the voter ID card they show to confirm their identity, when it was run through the Electoral Commission Central Database, it was rejected. Meaning the EC does not have those ID cards in their data, but the ID cards are in circulation and they are used as evidence and identity form. So our position is, for the proponent of the register, where we say let the existing ID card be one of the primary documents or identities that individuals will use to procure a new voter ID card. The tendency and the natural likelihood exists that all these over 500,000 fake voter ID cards are going to be reused to procure new voter ID cards.
I get your points now.
We are allowed to use this.
Okay.
Secondly, you would agree with me, the Electoral Commission, through the creation of 6 new regions, also created 81 new districts and added on 4,367 new police stations, shooting the total number of police stations to 33,367. So, when the Electoral Commission is supposed to gazette the registration centers where new voter registration exercise will take place, it is no longer going to be the 29,000 police stations and centers we used in previous elections, but this time 33,367 police stations or centers. Okay. Now, assuming a new region like Bono East, carved out originally from Bono Ahafo region, they have codes. A code like Ahafo region, which used to be Jane, on your voter ID card. The creation of a new region will make Ahafo region or have a new code, that is H. The Electoral Commission of Ghana did this new coding system just after the recently held district assembly elections. So, as we speak today, our research finding shows that over 7 million ID cards held by Ghanaians who have been affected by the newly created 6 regions with a corresponding 81 new districts, with a further corresponding 4,367 newly created police stations, will have a change in the coding system as it appears on their ID card when you just oppose it with the EC central data system.
Okay, so in 1 minute, you are saying that the problems that you are illustrating in 1 minute, and that my last question, the problems you are illustrating are resolvable only through a new register. Is that your point?
Well, let me further explain so that our viewers and
we have just a minute. You have just a minute.
The gravity of the situation and the accompanying solution. Something. If over 7 million voter ID cards are to be recalled and replaced, when we registered a little over 16 million Ghanaians, the former EC boss recorded a little over 12 million Ghanaians turning up to vote. So in effect, we have over 57% of the voters who voted last year. Probability is that they will have challenges at the polling centers when they are going to vote, more than 50%, over 7 million. Our recommendation is, it is such a high figure and over 50% cards that have challenges. It's so daring and it's so precarious that the only way out, in our estimation, according to our research finding, is to get the Electoral Commission to go do an entirely new voters register.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, David Asante, for elaborating on the Let My Vote Count Alliance's release about over 500,000 voter ID cards in issue. Do you appreciate the points that he makes?
Well, I have listened to him. But like you asked a very fundamental question, are they resolvable without a new voter register, compilation of a new voter register? I think they are. But let me come back. Samson, I've read the Abu Ramadan case many times. And I tell you here that Abu Ramadan's decision was given per incurium.
Meaning?
Without regard to the law, without due regard to law or the facts. Yes, it's very incurious. Let me demonstrate to you. CI 12.
Which of them? 1, 2, or 3?
CI 12.
Ramadan 1, 2, or 3.
Amud Ramadan, that said that the NHIA card. CI 12, CI 72, CI 91, CI 126 talks about evidence of identification.
What does that mean?
See, the decision in Abu Ramadan is a decision on documents of qualification. Go back and read the judgment. The decision in Abu Ramadan is documents of identification. And the CI 12, 72, 91, 126 is very clear. And we all know about interpretations. Words must be given their ordinary meaning, their ordinary signification. Unless giving them their ordinary signification will lead to an absurd.
So you should conclude.
A manifest absurdity.
You should conclude.
So I just pray to God that the Supreme Court will find another opportunity to right a wrong.
I see.
They read into evidence of identification. And I challenge everybody or anybody listening.
And it is in that case that the Chief Justice who led the ruling said, the judgment said that, said that the old voter card is the best prima facie evidence of an applicant's eligibility.
And why do we use prima facie evidence? Because citizenship is presumptive.
Okay, thank you.
So, it's a rebuttable presumption.
So, yes. The CI 126, by majority votes in Parliament, you have berthed it. Now the EC is ready to use it. There are those who are asking a number of questions. You are going to do a new registration. We have COVID-19. There are many Ghanaians who are stranded outside of this country. They can't come and re-register. What happens to them?
Something I'm not in a position to answer that. You ask me that question. I'm not the one who does the registration. I can't. But I want to tell the whole world that it is laughable for the minority leader, Haruna Ikisu, to say that they will produce automatic registration in 100 days. When in 8 years they couldn't produce one functional national identity card. So put that aside.
You say he said simply saying that.
Sorry. When they say compile a register under Article 45.
When I sit here, I reflect people's views to you. There are many people who are worried, and they have sent me messages. There are those who are in abroad.
But I am not in a position.
Oh, you are in Parliament. You said we should have CI 126.
We cannot add on or take out. If you want me to only focus on CI 126. What we voted on was the report of the committee. CI 126 passed in 21 days automatically. Now, in the report of the committee, we have agreed and concluded that it is within the Electoral Commission's mandate, the majority, to deliver on its administrative duties. And therefore, the criteria it has set out that it intends to use for registration is to be endorsed by us. The minority wants to import in a birth set and the old voter ID card, which are the subject of disputation in the Supreme Court as we speak. To stop the CI, you need 3/4 of the House. That didn't happen.
Right.
So the CI has passed.
That's true.
Now it is subject to the decision of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So
somebody has actually sued on it. Just yesterday, a rate has been filed. Okay.
I want to go back. I don't disrespect anybody. I don't disrespect you something. I am not the authority to determine what happens in those mechanisms. I am not. We have discharged our duty as Parliament. The operational mechanism.
If your constituent called you and said, I have been stranded, you're going to do a registration, I'm unable to be part of it, what would you say to them?
The risk you are driving me to is to make a value judgment. And I'll go back to Tenadi. Tenadi went to the Supreme Court and said for certain reasons he was entitled to be registered. The rules are out there.
Okay.
Please.
All right.
The rules are out there. But what I wanted to say is that the Constitution empowers EC to compile a register. In doing so, you necessarily, if you are compiling, must have criteria. And the criteria, Article 42, then averts our mind to certain criteria, including citizenship. So the question of citizenship, then we say, can't be limited only to birth certificates in the milieu in which we are. That's that's what he.
I'm not
so out of the numerous ways of determining citizenship, the EC has an administrative right to determine which of those ways it would use at any point in time. In all of the CIs from 12, 72, 91, 126, it hasn't included every means. Not all of them have included every means. And the gravamen of the argument about the voter ID card now is that in CI 12, there was no documentary proof of anything. All you had to do was present yourself, say you were Ghanaian, and that they will look at you and determine whether you have sound mind, and you get onto the register. And that if you have that card, and you use it as a means of proof now, it originally wasn't captured for you on any basis of proof. So you dilute the new register. That is what the EC's argument essentially is. Because that old card you are holding, you received it not on the basis of any documented evidence of your eligibility as a citizen. You only said it, and you were given the card.
We have just 2 minutes left. Dr. Kujau Asante, is Dr. Kujau Asante back on the line? Okay, he's not in.
I wish we could land on vouching.
Right.
Because much as nobody mentions vouching, to some extent it becomes even the most basic of means that you become or you get onto the electoral roll. And in the last limited registration exercise, the EC told the committee that 95.1% of the people, 95.1% of the people who registered came through by vouching. So if the new 126 gives you 100% increment in the number of people who can be vouched for, there is no likelihood of disenfranchising anybody. I think we have to be pragmatic at this stage. Let us approach this as a national exercise. And unfortunately for the former president, to say that 6 months to election is unprecedented, it is unprecedented because of COVID. He should know that COVID means that nothing is normal now. The reason that we don't have a register 6 months to go is not because of the EC, it's not because of the government, it's because of COVID.
So why are you not thinking about that? Now you have 11,000,
exactly. So
11,000 plus of your people as those infected. Of course, the recoveries too are there. Now we are in a situation, people appear to be behaving as if COVID is going away with us.
We must get back to it.
We are actually in more dangerous times, are we not? Where initially you knew the places where people were infected, but now almost everywhere somebody is infected.
We do not know.
Is it safe?
We never will know whether it's safe or not. That is the danger we are faced with now. We don't know. So are we going to shut down permanently? We have to live.
You have to take precautions.
We have to, that's why I'm in this studio. Is it safe to be here?
Of course.
We don't know. We don't know. I step out now, I don't know. It's not safe. So is it safe to do anything at all in the wide world? This thing is a matter impacting the entire world, impacting economies, impacting politics, impacting social lives. We must find pragmatic ways of dealing with it. And that is why we're emphasizing protection, social distancing, and all those protocols that empower you
in 30
to protect
seconds,
yourself
we're out of time. There are those who suggest that for the NDC to have abandoned the first of its 2 alternative reliefs.
They've come through the back door.
It means you have endorsed that the EC can compile a register. All you are against now is that it cannot do so without the existing ID card.
We abandoned it because the Supreme Court put us to an election. So when they put it to an election, you must elect.
Yeah, so before the court now, you don't have a challenge as to the fact that the EC cannot compile a register.
The fact is that you were put to an election.
Okay.
So when you are put to an election, you must elect.
And you go around and issue a new rate. Encompassing that.
Oh, that's not in the name of the NDC, somebody.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so the relief they abandoned, there's now a suit in the Supreme Court that is actually seeking that relief as the main relief it is seeking. Let's see what the court will do, whether they will consolidate the cases.
The best avenue actually for this matter, for the vindication of a right, is the High Court.
Okay.
That's the 15
All right.
to greet my,
we are done.
My politicians in Adenta.
Yes.
You know the Prime Minister this
quickly,
so
we are done.
I am hoping that they will grant me success in the name of God.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Yaboabian Samoa was a Kwafu Hall president. By virtue of the fact that I was also a Kwafu Hall president, I am with him. All right, my guests have been Inu Safuseni, MP, Tamale Central, and Ranking Member, Legal, Constitutional, and Parliamentary Affairs. Yabuabinga Samuel is MP, Adentan, and Director of Communications, New Patriotic Party. All right. We also had Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Director, Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the CDD, and David Asante of Let My Vote Count Alliance, also seeking election, joining us. Have a good afternoon. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. My outfit, as always, is by Latida.